My name is Itai, and this is my fourth video. And I've been a long time in the high-tech space, and I'm also an adjunct professor today at Cal State Fulton. I'm in this presentations and in these conversations, would like to inspire and educate people about there many paths that one can have in the software space. And I'm very excited about today's interview. Together with me today is Vineet, who is a senior program manager at AWS. And he used to lead also some of our largest project together when we worked together at Google. Program management is a very large area in software that has a lot of career opportunities. I think it's a quite compelling area, similar to product management, people that have been in the space for some time, and for one reason or another, maybe not the most excitement about continuing to be a developer, can still stay in the engineering org and have very strong career growth doing that. And I'm very happy to have Vineet, who will tell more about this. So maybe if you can introduce yourself and tell people, just a bit about yourself and what do you do?
Hey, yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you. Like, I'm really excited to be on this. I think what you were doing is actually great, and I like the fact that like we can inspire people together on their journey towards either program management, product management, software engineering, whatever and wherever they find their passion, right? Just a little bit about myself. I have about like 15, 16 years of like experience in the technology space. I'm from India and I started my career back in India. I got a job at this company called this TCS. It's the largest software company in the world, and that's how I got started in program management. I did my MBA a few years after that, and then I came to the US. And the last 5, 6 years, I've worked at Google, where I've led some of large projects, including like the work on like Pixel 6. I worked with Itai on like the privacy sandbox team as well. And now I'm at Amazon, where I lead operations for this new team called this Partner Solutions Factory. And the goal is basically to build specific solutions for like cloud-based solutions for specific industry problems and deploy them on Amazon on Marketplace. And I also lead the telco vertical. So I'm also responsible for building and deploying solutions in the telco space. Yeah, I'm excited to speak to everyone today.
That's awesome. And maybe a good place to start is just maybe defining what program manager is. I know there is a lot of terms like project manager and program manager and TPM, and I know Microsoft has their own definitions and Google their own definitions, and maybe Amazon has their own definitions as well. Maybe you can help us with doing some kind of order with what program management is, or maybe what is not.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've worked in quite a few companies, and you're absolutely right. Like each of these companies has a different definition of program management. Uh, at the end of it, what I've seen with a lot of companies is that they usually see the program management function as a way to bring some level of organization to the chaos that the specific program or the project is. So what I mean by that is, as a program manager or as a project manager, you are usually bought in for a ton of different functions that can actually help guide the project along. And in my mind, like I am biased, obviously, because I'm a program manager. I think program manager is a very key, important aspect of any software engineering project that happens. But a lot of the roles and responsibilities around actually looks like making sure that you define the project scope and objectives. So like working with your leaders, building out the strategy, trying to align on like what the end goal is, making sure that you work backwards from that end goal and you build out a program plan, and making sure that the team is aligned with that, and keeping the team on track to make sure that you deliver your goals, your milestones at certain times that you've committed to. I think one of the most important part of our role is risk management. So being able to see into the future and being able to like align with your leadership over there and being like, hey, I think like the program is moving towards this direction where we see it might fail. So being able to find that information and bring it back, keep it like data driven. I think that's a very key aspect of the program management role as well. Um, Regarding your questions around like the different types of roles, or like people call them TPMs or PMs. Like I've worked at Google where PM is a product manager, but if you go to any other company, PM is a program manager. And PMs are referred, or program managers at Google are referred to as PGMs. At Amazon, they're referred to as TPMs. If you go to another company, it's be like, well, you're a project manager. Like, what is the difference? In my mind, there's not a lot of difference over here. I think the main call out would be a project manager is usually a person that's responsible for one project. A program manager is usually a person that's responsible for a portfolio of projects, actually. But yeah, the main goal of program management, in my mind, just to summarize it for everyone, is like, how do you bring some level of definition or organization to the chaos that that program's going to be?
Interesting. And what do program managers do on a daily basis? So let's say somebody is interested in picking a career. What would their maybe daily life going to look like? Would they spend most of the times in meeting with other people? Would they spend most of their times, I don't know, sipping through some dependencies or features or spreadsheet, or what's the daily work like?
So that's a really good question, and that actually depends on the phase of the project that you are in. So, and I'll actually give you an example of what my day-to-day life actually currently looks like, because based on the phase of the project that I am in, and then I'll give you other examples also of like what your day-to-day could potentially look like. So for example, as of right now, we are in the phase where we are defining strategy for launch of our specific project that we're doing at actually AWS. So what that means for me is my goal over here is to make sure that we build out a strategy and a launch plan that everyone is aligned with and is in alignment with Amazon processes. So in this case, Amazon processes include a few artifacts that need to be built out. One is called an OP1. So OP1 is essentially your operational plan, and that is a high level 1 to 3 year goal where you write up like a couple of pages. And you're like, hey, this is what I want to achieve with this project in the next 1 to 3 years. One is called as a PR FAQ at Amazon. So what that means is it's a press release and FAQ. So at Amazon, when you're releasing a product, before you even start working on it, you have to write a fake PR, which means that when it's released, what is the press release gonna look like? And that gives you a very clear picture of like, hey, what is the product, who the customer is, how they're gonna be using it, and so on and so forth. And then you build out a launch plan. So the launch plan, obviously, like everyone knows, is a list of tasks and milestones that are gonna take you to that date, actually. Right. So in order for me to do this, I have to communicate effectively with multiple stakeholders. So in the case of OP1, usually we have a weekly check-in where we assign and we build the framework of the document. We are like, all right, this person's going to be responsible for this section. This person's going to be responsible for this section. And we align on a weekly basis and see that if we are headed towards the right strategy, right? So we are putting our thoughts together, and then we're building out the strategy from that, and then we put it down into the document. We do a ton of reviews and we move that forward. With the PR FAQ, we do something called as a working backwards session. So what that means is that we have an okay understanding of the product that we want to release, but now we work backwards from it and be like, well, are we actually building the right thing? Is this the right product that we're going to build? So that definition, and we usually do a couple of workshops within like the week. So my week is going to look like I come in from like 8 to noon. I'm working with all the stakeholders. We are in a meeting together. We are talking about like the different questions that we're trying to answer for that, which is like who the customer is, what is the problem we're trying to solve, and so on and so forth. And then we document all of that, and then it goes for a bunch of reviews. And the same thing for the launch plan as well. I meet with my team. We work towards the milestones. We're like, do these milestones make sense? And at the end of the day, the goal is to get it all like finalized so then we can start executing on it. So this is, as you can tell, is a very waterfall kind of model from a
Right.
program management perspective, right? So in short, like what my day-to-day looks like is it's usually a bunch of meetings to make sure we're following up on action items, risks, dependencies, with the people that are working on specific tasks. It's also me doing a ton of work around making sure that we are in line to meet our milestones that we've set. So if we need to have our OP1 done by the end of the month, if we need to do weekly reviews, all of that is taken care of. But that is in like the strategy planning phase, right? Now, when you're in an execution phase, when you're actually building a product and when you're working towards certain milestones and deliverables, then your day-to-day is fairly different. Then as a program manager, you're mainly responsible for making sure that you're kind of like the glue that's between like all the different teams. I like to say that program management or the program managers are the people that usually work the hardest. And I'm trying to offend anyone over here, but still, uh, because you have to like make sure that you understand all aspects of the work. So you need to be, if you're working on a software engineering project, you need to make sure you understand what the engineers are talking about. When you're talking to product managers, you understand their language or what they're trying to speak about products as well. If you're working with business stakeholders and selling the product, you want to understand their lingo and the way that they're speaking as well. So in an execution phase, I think a lot of your time is going to go in following up with all of these different groups of people and making sure that they are in line to deliver the milestones and the tasks that they are actually working on. And as a program manager, you are responsible for building the infrastructure, the tooling that is going to keep all of you all organized. And what I mean by that is that how can software engineers give you updates? Or how can software engineers do the work that they're supposed to do? Uh, 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 and trying to be more productive or more efficient as much as they can, right? So like you as a release program manager, you'll be optimizing the release process for software engineers. As a program manager of portfolios of programs, you'll be making sure that there's a framework set in place that optimizes the delivery of all aspects across all of these groups of people, actually. So I think your main goal and your day-to-day differs based on like what phase of the project you are in.
One of the things that you mentioned that is waterfall. So I do want to ask you about certifications. So there are many certifications in the marketplace for Agile, for PMP, if I remember correctly, and at least on the areas of project management, there is many different options. Do you find those? How do you find the role of certification at certain project management methodologies to be? Do you find them, is the learning, is the certification, how can something like this advance one's career, if at all?
Yeah. So before I answer that question, now again, there are a lot of people that might have different perspectives on
Of course.
certification. This is just my perspective on it. I think there is nothing better than in-person learning and industry experience once you get into the industry as well, right? So there is no alternative for you actually doing the work with someone and learning from that. And what I mean by that is you can actually try and find a mentor in the space as well, who can actually give you a lot of information around like how to tackle specific scenarios in program management, how to avoid like certain like risks in program management, and so on and so forth, right? So I think there is no alternative to industry experience itself. That's first. Having said that, I think certifications are very beneficial to people that are just starting off in program management because it gives you a platform or it gives you a framework of like how program management is actually done. So if you are someone new that's planning to switch to program management and like build your career within program management itself, like as you said, there are quite a few certifications out there. I think PMP is one of the most known certification. you can definitely take that. You can learn for that, and you can learn the framework around that. There's Scrum, there's certified Scrum Master. There is, I think, Agile certified practitioner. There are quite a few certifications that I think people can take. But that's, I think, good in terms of making sure that you understand what program management is and learn the framework of program management. But beyond that, I think once you start working as a program manager, like program management, the role is very different in every company that you work for. I can honestly tell you that, like, in all the companies that I've worked for, I haven't done the same thing.
Mm.
Like, the concept or some of the logic is the same, but the execution of your program management tasks is different in every company that you go to.
Yeah, that makes sense. On the job training, unless you're just starting. So,
Yeah.
it's a good way to kickstart your career. Um, in the topic of education, what are your thoughts regarding bachelor degrees and master degrees? So a master degree is going to be something like an MBA or something similar potentially, and the bachelor degree. So people who come into program management, what would usually be the kind of educational background, and how much, let's say, a CS degree is important versus like just a math degree, or maybe humanities, maybe English? How do you see those things play out in one's career?
Yeah, I feel like that's a really great question, right? I have personally gotten that question a multiple times because just a little bit of a background. I came to the US in 2011 to do my MBA. I did my MBA from Hult Business School, which is in San Francisco. But then after that, I tried to get my H-1B visa, and I didn't get selected, so I didn't win the lottery for the H-1B visa 2 years in a row. So I went and did two more MBAs. So
Mhm.
I didn't finish my third, but I have like two and a half MBAs is what I tell people actually. But having said that, I think I'm a big proponent for further education. I think as of right now, the day and space or the day and age that we actually live in, you cannot survive in an industry if you don't have continuous learning. 40 years ago, 50 years ago, I feel like one person could be in their industry in the same role for like 35 plus years. We don't live in that day and age anymore as of right now. We are where technology is changing so fast. And if you're especially if you're in the technology space, it's changing so fast that you actually need to continuously keep learning. So again, having an MBA, I feel like is very similar to like building your platform actually, and making sure that that's ready to propel you in a specific career or field. So if you think about it, if you're starting off in the field, I think an MBA is an excellent thing to get. And making sure that you have that MBA, like if you're getting an MBA from like one of the top Ivy League schools or Cal State Fullerton, you can basically make sure that like you will be able to get a job at one of these companies fairly easily because you have an MBA, and that's one thing that people look for. Now, if you've been working for 15 years, what I would recommend is actually looking at your background and seeing what industry experience you've gotten and see what is missing. Like for example, when I started working at Google, I had no engineering experience whatsoever. And I quickly realized Google engineers don't like to talk to you if you don't have engineering experience. And it was a stark realization for me that like, oh well, like if I'm talking to them, I need to know like what the hell I'm talking about. So what I did was I actually went back, and while I was working at Google, I actually learned how to become a full stack developer. And that actually built and helps my relationship with like the engineering team, and I was able to lead like better programs and more successful and larger programs within the Google environment itself. So your question about do you, do you need to have a bachelor's degree or master's degree, I think it's an excellent option if you want to propel your career forward. But at the same point of time, I would always challenge you to continue looking at your background to see like what's missing. You've now done your MBA. Are you missing any engineering courses that you can actually take? And now it's become so easy to learn, right? You can go to Coursera, you can go to Udemy, you can go to any one of these places and be like, oh yeah, like I'd love to take this course and like move this forward, right? So that's something that you should always continuously keep doing, because that's the best way to move your career forward. Yeah.
So yeah,
Um, and your question around like whether an MBA is good or whether a CS degree is good, or which degree to pick and choose. Again, like look at your background, assess your background. What are you really good at? What are you currently missing? And if you think you're missing some engineering knowledge that you need in order to like get this amazing job that you're trying to land, go and do a CS degree, you know?
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you can always add certain areas that you're interested in.
Yeah.
So what made you become a program management manager? So could have been product manager, software engineer, maybe others. And in general, um, what do you think makes people get into program management in general, at least for those that you've seen?
Um, so uh, like the first part of that, like what actually made me become a program manager, I'll probably say that I probably didn't choose this field for myself. I was like pushed into it a little bit. So when I was back in India, TCS came to my college to actually hire students into TCS. And when they interviewed me, one of the key things that stood out was my communication. They're like, oh yeah, like this guy is really great in communication and we need him to talk to clients, put him into program management. So that's how I got started off in program management.
Yeah.
Uh, and I started working at TCS. And then I realized I actually loved speaking with clients. So at that point of time, I was working with British Telecom, and I really liked I kind of like the aspect of like meeting multiple people across different industries, diverse roles, and it was really enjoyable for me to like speak to them and like learn from them essentially. The second part of that was, as a program manager, you're not working on one project. You're working on multiple different projects at a certain time. So you are constantly learning about specific industries and how that industry functions, and then like when you switch programs, then you learn about a different industry. So I like that aspect of that. I wasn't, I mean, I was going fairly deep in a certain industry, but I was also being able to, or I had the capability of learning different industries also, right? So the fact about like having the ability to speak to multiple people, collaborating across different stakeholders. I'm really OCD about organization, so I think that's something that like aligned with my values. Learning about different industries, and then being able to tackle challenges that previously have not been done. You know, like one of the programs I worked on at Google was the launch of the material design on the Pixel 6 using like Google proprietary hardware. And that was really exciting for me because that had not been done before. So it was a new challenge, and I learned about that industry. So what I would say is that I was kind of forced into the program management role of it, but I stayed because of the experience.
Mhm.
I stayed because I was able to talk to a lot of different people, collaborate with them, learn from them, diverse roles, diverse experiences, diverse industries. You are not stuck doing just one thing, and it's not monotonous. I feel like it's really exciting because you get to learn about so many different industries. Yeah.
Interesting. I think that you mentioned people who are very organized. So maybe a question, you mentioned a couple of different skills. What are the, how can I know more correctly? How can one of the listeners know if they might be a very strong fit and would also enjoy something like program management? Is this maybe, is this someone technical who just like things to be very organized, or what are kind of some um, ways for a person to know that this is a good fit for him, potentially that he never worked in a program management and maybe never met one?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that is such a great question, right? Because like it is important for you to know like what kind of role you would like and like what role you would be happy in, because I personally feel, and I like work on this with my team as well, is Um, if you are happy in your role, you're probably going to stick, and you're probably going to like do a terrific job at your company. But if you're unhappy and if you don't like it, then there's something missing, and you need to find out what's missing actually, right? So I'll kind of like answer the first part of your question, which is like the technical versus non-technical. So there are both types of role. There's a technical program manager, there's a non-technical program manager. And the key difference over here is that non-technical program managers are usually working on programs that do not involve the software engineering product. So it's more around like sales pipelines, it's more around like building out programs that can help push certain products into the market, or around diversity, equity, inclusion. It's about meeting like companies' employment goals, or it's about meeting companies' hiring goals. It's basically programs that don't involve the software engineering product, right? And the technical pieces of that is where, well, you're working on an actual product. So you're working on building the Google Pixel 6, or you're working on building a specific engineering solution to solve a problem in the telco industry. So it just depends on like where your values lie, like whether you want to like be a technical program manager, so you go and learn a little bit about that, or whether you want to learn, or whether you want to work on a DEI project, and then you go and learn about that, right? I think more about like where your values lie. So the first thing I would say is that if you want to be in program management, I think the first thing you have to ask yourself is, um, do you like communication? Because I feel like if you are an extrovert, you get energy from communicating with different people, different stakeholders, then I think it's a terrific role for you, because everything else can actually be learned. Because as a person, if you're a person that does not like communication, because there's one thing you're not going to change about program management, is that you can't do this role without communicating. uh, right? So there are a few qualities that you could look and see that whether you'd be a good fit. One is like if you do like organization, if you do like working on different programs across like multiple years, actually. Do you like monotonous tasks, or do you like learning about different industries and switching context a couple of years, actually? Do you want to gain a breadth of knowledge, or do you want to go deep in a specific industry? So I think you can look at some of these factors and then decide whether program management is a good fit for you. At the end of the day, what I'll tell you is that any role, any skill set can be learned. Like you just have to put in a little bit of work into that, and you can make yourself a good fit for that specific role, right? But yeah, like you'll definitely be successful. Like if you're a good communicator, you're organized, you love solving challenges, you want to learn more about like all different aspects of software engineering. You want to learn a lot more about, you want to gain a breadth of industry knowledge rather than go deep. I think if you fit into some of these values or these criteria, then yes, I think you're a good fit for program management.
Interesting. I think that you mentioned people with maybe more of the technical, they will be more working with like the software engineering type of programs, and then there is the more, let's say like sales, the non software engineering types of project, maybe for people with less of a technical background. Are there any, when someone goes into program management, are there any specialization in for example, software engineers have, let's say, front end and back end. Is the specialization only technical, someone who might have technical background or non-technical background, or are there more type of specialization that someone should be aware of as they pick roles?
And I feel like this is something that you will learn out of experience, right? Is like when you go into software engineering, as you said, you could be a front-end developer, back-end developer. But what you learn is you learn how to do front-end development. You learn how to do back-end development. But 80% of your role is basically based on configuring your systems based on what the company actually tells you to do. And then like the writing code part of it is actually like 10% of your work, and the remaining time is just like debugging the code actually based on like, oh yeah, like there's a conflict with this, and then trying to resolve that conflict or whatever, right? So program management is very similar. is that as a program manager, you need to learn the framework of program management. So you need to learn like the different methods of program management. You need to learn like when you're organizing a specific program, what are specific artifacts do you need? You need to learn like, well, if you're doing updates, how can you do updates? You need to learn like some of the tools that people use. So there's like Asana, there's Tableau, there's a bunch of different tools that you can use for program management. You need to learn a little bit of that. You need to learn like how to handle different situations in terms of like risk logs, change logs, etc. But all of these things you can learn very easily from a program management course or program management certifications. And if you have this knowledge, this basic understanding of program management, then you can take that and then you can bring it to your company, and then you can align that with the way your company does program management. So for example, when I was working at Google, like Google never used any outside tools. They didn't use Jira, they didn't use Asana, they didn't use, I'm forgetting like some of the tools actually, but they didn't use any of this. So a lot of my time initially when I was doing program management at Google was actually spent on like aligning to how Google does program management using their in-house built tools, right?
Mm.
And then building program management, or like making program management more effective using those tools. So one of the examples that I've always seen is that, and I tell this to a lot of people, is that if you want program managers to be successful, you have to build out processes in such a way that you don't ask engineers and product managers to do anything.
Mm.
And if you're able to do that, then you've successfully become a good program manager. And when you build a program, you need to make sure that you build it in such a way that at one point of time, if you leave it, it is still going to function. Like you don't have to, like you as a person should not be the critical glue that's holding this together. You need to build it in such a way that you can walk away from it and it's still going to function. So you basically are a person that's automating your own role in a company, and then you're leaving. And if you've done that, I think you're a very successful program manager.
This is interesting. It's like it says like run on automation, not on agony and blood.
Yeah,
Um,
but like it's
uh,
such a good point, right? Because it's one of those things that like a lot of people, like I was talking to someone this weekend and they're like, oh my God, like program management and tech and like the tech industry just seems so intimidating. And I think it's intimidating from the outside when you look into it, but you got to remember that all of these roles can be learned. There is nothing that cannot be learned.
mhm.
And it's as of this time, it is the easiest that it's ever been to learn these things than it was like a few years ago, actually. So I think you're in a great time, great opportunity. You have an amazing professor. Please learn this.
So you made a very strong pitch for program management. So after this, um, all of this conversation, I wonder how do you get hired? So maybe a good place to start is first, what makes one's a good resume? What's a, what's a good resume in program management?
Um, so that's a really good question because um, like uh, I've so I'm one of those people that like when I first came to the US, I had to work on a work visa, and there are very few companies that sponsor work visas, right? And I think like I think the percentage is I think 5 or 10% of companies sponsor work visas, but you don't know that because these companies don't publish it on their sites, saying that oh we are only going to take, and I think they've started doing more of this now, but back in 2011 they didn't publish it on the sites that they do or they do not sponsor work visa, right? So what I used to do was I used to apply for thousands of jobs. I used to apply for thousands of jobs and I used to make like small edits to my resume to see like where I would get called, where I would not get called,
Wow.
and like what was the best thing. And surprisingly, one of the things that I noticed was the formatting actually.
Hmm.
So all you need to do is keep it very simple format in a Word document, 2 pages, because what they do is they actually extract the text and they make it available in all of their internal tools actually. And if you use fancy formatting images and all, so it kind of like blows out the text and people can't read actually what you're writing in your resumes. So that's actually one good point of like just making sure that you're able to apply within the systems itself. The second, what makes a good resume for program managers is it's data driven. So people don't want to say that, oh, I started a program and the program was really successful. That's a wrong statement.
Mhm.
It's like, I joined a program. Within 3 months, I was able to successfully stand up the program. These are the metrics that we were tracking, and this is how the metrics improved. They improved by 10%, they improved by 12%, and so on and so forth. That is a data-driven statement that people look out for, right? So as a program manager, you are judged on the data, actual data that you provide. So make sure your resume is very data-driven, data-oriented.
Mhm.
The second thing I'll make sure is that there are certain KPIs that people as a program manager, they actually align with, right? So it's like, well, how many risk items did you identify? What was your project milestones, and like, did you align with your project milestones? Were you able to deliver the project on the date that you initially committed to? How many stakeholders were you working with? How often were you doing your updates? How were you doing your updates? What tools were you using? So these are questions that as a program manager, you tend to ask and look for in resumes. So if you can incorporate these certain line items under your experience, I think it'll be very helpful for you to like actually get interview calls back.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I mean, the tip, by the way, is an excellent tip regarding the formatting. I think originality of formatting and structure is there is some good places for it, and resume is not one of them.
And one of the last things that I'll add about like just getting a job is that applying at company websites is the first thing I'll say is it's a numbers game. If you apply for 1,000 jobs, you might get 100 callbacks. Out of those 100 calls back, you might progress to the final round of the interview in 10 of them, and out of those 10 of them, you might get like 3 offers, and then you have your choice. So it's a numbers game. So please don't get upset or sad if like you get a rejection notice from like one company that you applied for a dream job, right? The second is if you're applying for like smaller companies, you can actually find the recruiter and the hiring manager that's potentially hiring for that role on LinkedIn. And you can easily guess their email, or you can go to Rocket Reach. It's a site that I use all the time to find personal email IDs and official email IDs of people on LinkedIn and send them an email. The way I got my job at Google was I found a hiring manager. I sent her my resume. She said that she doesn't have any roles for me. I followed up with her every 2 months. After 1 year, I guess she got frustrated with me and she was like, hey, fine, I'll get you an interview. So she got me an interview and I got hired.
Wow.
Yeah, I've never gotten a call back because I've applied on the company website. I always find like any hiring managers or recruiters at a company and I send them an email. And 95% of the time, if you send them a personal email, even if it's not their role, they will find the hiring manager for that role or they'll find the recruiter for that role and they will forward your email to them. So you have a higher chance of getting a call back for interviews if you actually send personal emails out to like hiring managers and recruiters.
Yeah, that's a very good tip about the following up with the personal touch to make sure that things get done in the end.
Yeah.
So now that we know that don't submit and forget about your resume. I do have a question regarding how do you know when there is a posting of program management positions? Let's assume it's a small company, so maybe at Amazon or at Google things are very structured. Let's assume it's a smaller company. How would you know that this is maybe a good opportunity versus maybe it's not going to be exactly program management as you might think it is? Or maybe they have a different idea what program management is.
Yeah. Um, Sorry, I was kind of like smoking when you said things are organized at Google and Amazon. I was like,
It's the job title. The job title.
uh, so program management, like as I mentioned before, like with program management, I think like once you learn the framework of it, once you learn like how program management is actually done, it's more about aligning program management to the way the company does program management, and that's going to be different at every company. So that is a learning curve that you're going to have irrespective of which company you join. So what I tell a lot of people is, when you're looking at the role, look at it from a perspective of that, does it bring you joy, right? Like if you are going to be working on a product, or if you're going to be working on an initiative, does that initiative line up with your values? And does that initiative like make you feel happy? Like for example, like I love engineering. I love solving engineering problems. I am a developer myself. I do write code off and on. So if there is a technical challenge that the company is trying to solve, that excites me. So that's what I look for when I'm like reading roles actually. And I'm like, oh well, like this company is actually like working on this incredible like climate change initiative, and they're using AI and ML to solve this, and there are some details of how they're solving this problem. And when I read that, I'm like, oh my god, this actually aligns with my values, this aligns with what I want to do in the future, and this aligns with what I want to like move my career towards. So those are a few things that I look out for. Like I don't really look out for seeing that, oh, it is a program manager role, but how they're doing program management, because that doesn't matter, because it's going to be different at like whatever company you actually go to. Now, let's say you apply for this company and you get a call back. This is where you can ask questions, and it's totally okay to ask questions to the people that are interviewing you. In fact, one of the interviewing tactics that I have for people is that start by asking questions. And I do that a lot in interviews. And in most interviews, it becomes a conversation. And there have been quite a few interviews where they like it's been they haven't asked me any questions. I've been asking them questions, and we spent 45 minutes like that, right? But you can ask them questions about, how do they do program management? Why are they hiring a program manager for? Like, what is missing that they need a program manager for right now? Ask them that what your day to day in life is going to look like. Ask them what tools you're going to be using. One thing that really frustrates me is when I go into a company is that they don't have like proper tools. They're like, oh yeah, like we do program management. I'm like, how do you do program management on Microsoft Word? That's bullshit. You need to have like proper tools, dashboarding tool set in order to like be successful at your job. So I ask questions around like making sure that you are successful at your job based on like whatever the company infrastructure is available. And then you can make your decision on whether you want to join this company or not. But looking at the role, reading the role, if it's a program manager role, a few things you want to make sure that the product actually is aligned with your values. It's at the right level that you want to like be hired at. Actually, you don't want to be applying for a project coordinator role or a junior program manager role if you are already a senior program manager. So make sure it's at the right level. Yeah.
Yeah, those are some good tips. Thank you for that. And we talked a bit about the interviews, and you mentioned, you can ask questions. When someone walks into an interview for program management, what are is there like a standard of what those interviews are like? And if so, how do you prepare to them? Do you need to bring something with you, like bring, not like as a present, but like as like prepare something in advance about like maybe learn something specific about the company, or what are some expectations regarding interviews as a whole that people should?
Yeah. Um, that's such a fantastic question. And I've done, I think, about like 50, 60 interviews when I was at Google as a part of my career at Google. Like prior to that, I've like interviewed a ton of people. So I'll kind of like break it up into two sections, right? Which is like, how do like small to medium sized companies do interviews, and how do like large tech big companies do interviews actually? So small to medium sized companies, what I've seen is, because it's a smaller company, they have less resources. So what they want to do is they want to make sure that they hire the perfect person for the role. So the interview process at small to medium-sized companies is fairly ad hoc, actually. And what that means by that is that you're going to be talking to multiple people, and it could even be that at the end of the interview, they actually get the CEO to come in and be like, "Hey, is this person going to be a fit at the company?" So at small to medium-sized companies, what they're actually looking for is one, that do you understand program management? And you give them some examples of how you've successfully used program management to deliver products in the past, right? So that's the first thing. And the second thing that they're looking for is your company fit. So that is a very specific like culture fit to that specific company. And that's when they bring like, so when you've done some interviews and then you see the CEO coming in, that's a sign that you've cleared the role fit of the job, and now they're looking to see the cultural fit of the job, right? So that's one thing, and I'll talk more about like how you can prepare for these interviews. For the bigger companies, what I've seen is they use the STAR method, and what that means is that they'll ask you questions based on specific scenarios and so on and so forth, and you respond using the STAR method. So what the situation was, what was the task, action, and results, right? Now, what I've done in these interviews is that before any interview, what I do is I prepare a list of about 20 examples. And I think like 20 is quite a lot, but like you could even do by with like 15 or 15 examples essentially. But it's 15 examples of a project, and you break it down into like, this is the project that I worked on. So very similar to the STAR method, like this is the project or the program that I worked on. This is what my role was in the program. This is how I delivered these results, and then like list the KPIs, the data, the metrics, and all of that. And this was the role of the team. This is what the team did, right? So if you have 15 examples documented and obviously prep for them, then any scenario-based questions that these companies ask, you can pick up a program from this and be like, this applies to this scenario, and then answer, right? Because one thing I think like I've seen in a lot of interviews is that like people tend to like go down a certain route and then they continue in that certain way itself, and then you have to pull them back actually, right? And that is one sign that like people when the interviewers are looking at that, that's one sign that they don't really know the program that well. Like if you're very clear and concise with your answers, like, yeah, this is the project that I was working on, these are all of my roles that I did in the project. And then they might ask you like a couple of follow-up questions. You said you did this, how did you do this, right? And have an answer for it. But if you're not concise, then it seems like that you're making it up on the spot and you don't know too much about your program. And that's when I think like you get dinged for marks and then potentially like a non-hire, right? So the best thing is make sure you got a list of programs, get as much detail about those examples as possible, and you should be able to clear your interviews.
Yeah, that's a very good tip. You need to be clear and concise when communicating. Otherwise, people might think, it's maybe you're not that involved with the details. And it's also, as you mentioned, a lot of program management is about communication skills.
Yeah.
So it's important.
But and also you want to be data driven. Like in your answers, you want to be data driven. That I was able to implement this process that improved efficiency by 12%, right? And then they'll ask you why 12% and how did you calculate 12%? Have an answer for that.
Makes sense. So when someone, let's assume somebody who's watching us now is already a program manager, but kind of early in their career, maybe at some junior position at small to medium company. What are some expectations regarding career growth in program management, or how does it usually work? What are some common avenue? Is it, for example, that person is just maybe would look for bigger and bigger and bigger project? Is it maybe many people continue to be individual contributor, but maybe joining better and better company or better opportunities? Is it a management track? Is it becoming a GM or something? Like what are kind of some classic career progression for program managers?
Yeah. So I've seen it in like multiple different ways. And I feel like based on the company, it just depends, like what your career progression could actually look like. So for example, I used to work at this medium-sized company. It was it basically was about 2,000 people, and they had it was a consumer brand, and they had like a ton of different departments. So they had departments around like design, merchandising, warehouse, uh, their websites, a product, their actual technology and their IP. So it was their engineering teams. And what I did for a few years was I actually worked as a project manager across all of these different teams. So I actually learned how the design process worked, design of clothes, right? And I learned how warehousing worked. So it was me getting a breadth of experience across like how I could take a consumer brand from concept to the hands of an actual consumer, all through. So I learned the entire flowchart. And what that helped me do is that actually made me like one, I like became the lead program manager within that company for all of this. But second of all, I was on track to like be the head of operations. And if I would have stayed at that company, eventually land the chief operations officer role within that company itself. So in my mind, like a lot of program management is based off operations. And I think a good career progression or a good career track for you could be that you land your role, become like a chief operations officer essentially at a company itself. I've also seen a ton of program managers actually become CEOs within their companies, small to medium sized businesses. They've actually become that because they have a breadth of knowledge of how the company actually operates, uh, rather than having deep knowledge in just how design works or how warehousing works, right? So I've seen that as well. So I think it's based on the company for small to medium sized businesses. And also like there are other roles that you could actually even grow into, right? Like if you are a program manager, like one of my very close friends, she and I started as program managers at this company, and she was in the marketing department, and she loved that role so much that she just grew within that department and she became the CMO of the company.
Mm.
So it's just based on where, again, like where your value lies, where your passion lies, where you want to grow your level, where you want to grow your skill set. With bigger companies, I think the roles are more prominently defined. So if you're a program manager, you grow within the program management track, right? So at Google, like if you're a program manager, you join at a certain level and then you keep getting bigger programs, you keep getting bigger teams, you keep getting bigger challenges, and you grow within that level. And then essentially you become a program management director. And then you start like handling like entire business units actually, right? But Google is a more product driven team. So there are more opportunities if you're a product manager, whereas Amazon is a more program driven team. So if you're a program manager at Amazon, you actually get to lead engineering teams, which is not the case at Google. And then you could eventually grow and like handle your own business units within like the company itself. So the good thing about program management, career growth, and trajectory is that it's not limited to one thing. You can take it in any direction that you want to take it in.
Mm.
I mean, I probably think it's like one of the more versatile roles out there, that it's not fixed. You can definitely grow into the role that you want it to be. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Um, if a software engineer, let's say, sometimes uh, it already happened to me a few times. Students come and say, "Hey, I want to go into program management. So, what advice do you have?" So, delegating this question to you, what advice would that be? Is that, as you mentioned, maybe getting certification and starting to apply, or is this figuring out really with yourself, is that something you want to do, or what's going to be some advice? Let's say somebody comes from software management and they say, okay, I want to go to program management. Give me an advice.
I mean, I would personally ask myself, like, why do I want to become a program manager, right? Like, one of my mentors, and like, I think I alluded to this earlier, was that it's very important for you to have a mentor. Like, even like if you're searching for a role, find someone that can like help you out in the space, right? So find a mentor that can guide you in the space itself. So one thing one of my mentors told me was that never run away from a situation, always run towards a situation, right? So if you're a software engineer and if you want to become a program manager, ask yourself, like, are you trying to run away from software engineering or are you trying to run towards program management? That's the first question, typically. Now, if you're running away from software engineering, I would probably say that try to find the reason as to like, why are you trying to run away from software engineering? Like, why is that not working for you? And try and fix that essentially, or try and change that. But if you want to run towards program management, I would still ask the same question. It's like, why do you want to run towards program management? Like, is there a specific value that you think that you want to like work towards? Is there a specific role that you saw that you think is going to be incredible for you? But but for people that have already done this question asking like within themselves, and they've decided that they still want to continue and become a program manager, like one advice that I would give to everyone is that, like what I said before, is like find a mentor who is a program manager and who can actually guide you. So once you start working, you're going to come across like different situations that you can bring back to your mentor, and then they can tell you, it's like, all right, this is a good way of like handling the situation. Because in my mind, I think like there is no alternative for industry experience, and like who better to learn it from someone that has already done it. Currently at Amazon, I have 3 mentors that I talk to on like a weekly basis, and I ask them questions. And plus, I'm in touch with my mentors from Google. So and I think like this applies to any role, is like find a mentor, find a coach, because they can really make a difference.
Yeah, those are some good tips. And so I have only one more question for this interview, and thank you so much for all those fantastic insights. I
Absolutely.
I know
My
that
pleasure.
I learned a lot, and I'm sure that others will learn a lot too. So one of the things that you mentioned was that early on in your career, the choice to go into program management was almost done for you by the selection process. So now with what you know today, if you were not a program manager, what would you be and why?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because if I think about it as of right now, I'm glad that the selection process was done and I landed in program management, because I love what I do. Like, it is such an exciting time to be in technology as of right now, with like like I'm sure like everyone's heard about Chat GPT. Like I think we are at the tipping point of like artificial intelligence, machine learning as of right now. And like the use cases that are going to be uncovered using those technologies is really, really exciting. So I'm really excited to be a program manager in this field, in this technology, working with companies that are actually at the forefront of like these technologies. So that is super exciting for me. The other thing is that if you look at every other industry out there, most of it now is driven by technology. And one of my passion areas is healthcare. And healthcare is like one of those industries that has like stood its wall, and it's like, no, we are not going to change. But I think that change is coming. So I'm really excited to be a program manager working on like healthcare solutions, working on like the healthcare space a little bit, and being able to like see how we can use technology to better serve consumers, better serve people out there. So in short, like I'm glad the selection process pushed me towards this, because if I would not have gone towards program management at that point of time, I would have always wondered and would have always been like, why can't I be a program manager? So yeah.
This is awesome. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time and talking with me, talking with our audience. And I really appreciate it. And I hope that to see you soon in Southern California.
I'm looking forward to it, man. It was my pleasure, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Good luck, buddy.